Hello, and welcome to Gen Friends. I'm Cheri Hudson Passey, and we have with us tonight Terry O'Connell. She is the executive director of the In-Depth Genealogist, and we have Mary Kircher-Roddy, who is from MKR Genealogy. Well, tonight, ladies, we are going to be talking about two shows. So we got a lot to talk about. We are going to be talking about episode 6 of Relative Race, which airs on Sunday nights at 9 o'clock on BYU TV. And the new season of Long Lost Families started, and that's also on Sunday night. So we got back-to-back Genealogy TV, and that's on TLC at 10 o'clock on Eastern time. So are you ready? we got a lot to talk about. Let's start first with Relative Race. It was jam-packed. It was emotional. We had the black team starting from Nevada. We had the red team starting from California. We had the blue team starting out from South Carolina, and we had the green team who were in Alabama. Anybody want to get started with what was going on with those teams?
Well, both the black team and the red team wound up very, very close to each other. And it was interesting. Black team got stuck in some horrible California traffic, and they were fortunate that they had they'd won the day before it, and they'd opted to forego their first challenge. And so that totally saved them time, although their second challenge was horrible for them.
Exactly. It did save them time. But the cool thing, because you mentioned that they're so close together, and that's significant because...
Well, they're related.
They're related.
And I'm just wondering, wouldn't it be something if they showed up at the same relative's house, the same connection? Because they didn't really tell them at the beginning of the show how they're related, only that they're related.
Nope.
So, and they're right now, I grew up just very, very close to that area. So I love to see the scenery there.
Yeah.
The bridges and other things.
Yeah.
And they're, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 miles away from each other right now.
Yeah. So I'm rooting for them ending up at the same home. That would be amazing. That would be so amazing. So let's talk about that first challenge. The first challenge was, who wants to explain it?
It was, they were working with like a Play-Doh kind of deal. They had to be blindfolded, sitting behind their partner, and that's the person making whatever whatever the word was. And I think they had to do this 15 times. And then the person in front who was able to see was able to guess. And it really, it was funny to watch them, because at first they're all just trying to make the item. And then they realize, like, if they can improvise with their hands, it will make it a lot simpler. And you saw, like, the red team busted through it as soon as they figured it out.
They were killing it. They they were killing it. They were doing such a good job. Not so much for the other other team. So black team, I'm sure, is grateful they didn't have to do it, because
I would be.
Yeah. That was a tough one. And some of the things, how do you model Wi-Fi? I mean, what?
I would think it would just be that little simple, like it's like the lines. I don't know.
Yeah, but to try to, feel that and try to, or look at that and realize what it is. Yeah, that was quite interesting. I'm thinking a lot of the challenges that they're doing would be so much fun at family reunions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'd be hysterical at family reunions. So I'd like to kind of make a list of all the things that they did.
I did like the blue team. The one was photograph. And they couldn't get it. And
they have this blind spot when it comes to cameras and photographs, and they can't seem to. But they did do a better job of working together. They did do a better job.
And they did a great job on stain. I mean, the dad's like putting the Play-Doh on his shirt to make a stain on his shirt, and he got that one. I thought that was great.
That was great. So those are wonderful. And so then they had to move on to the second challenge. So by the time Team Black finally arrived, they ended up having to do the golfing challenge, and neither one of them had ever golfed ever before. And so that took them forever, because they had to do 3 holes in one from different
10, 15, and 25.
And 20. Yeah. And so, It was, hey, Bernice has showed up. We're glad to see you. We're just talking about the second challenge of relative race and how the black team they had to do that golfing challenge.
The golf, yes.
It was terrible. It was terrible. But the red team got another second challenge that they were really good at, and that was a CrossFit.
Yeah.
They killed it on that one.
Yeah, they were good last night. They were whipping through all their challenges. That just seemed to be made for them.
It was a well-deserved win.
Yeah.
It was a well-deserved win for them.
It was. I was happy for them.
And then how about the blue team? They had to do that cake. See, that would be a fun kind of family reunion kind of thing too, is to have to recreate and decorate a cake. And what is it with them having all these family members that like sweets and chocolates? And it's a pattern.
I was very impressed that they got through that on the first one.
Yeah. I was too.
But you know what? It's that artist eye being the photographer.
Yes, exactly. He probably could look at it.
Yeah.
Yes. And then poor green team with having to eat that food.
Oh, I just knew. I bet they threw up.
Oh, it looked like they were. I thought, is this relative race or is this like Survivor? You know, eat all this stuff.
So nothing was vegan. So they had to eat the whole thing. They should have just said none of this is vegan, but they didn't realize that.
Oh, yuck! That was. And so they get to their relatives, and what does the relative say? Are you hungry? So of course they couldn't eat. Let's talk about their relatives first, because the other ones get really emotional. And so, well, theirs was a little emotional too, but not as emotional as the other team. So the green team found some more cousins. And in finding those cousins, they discovered that the cousins and the green team had the same, their great grandfathers were brothers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then they discovered that they had been enslaved and then had been freed. And that really touched them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved her outlook on it. Like, with this, we won.
Yeah, we got this information, so it doesn't matter what else happens.
Yes.
We won. Yeah, that was great. And
it was great to see them when they saw the obituary.
Yeah.
Right.
And the woman was just jumping. She knew exactly the connection.
The connection that she had known their granny, as they called her. That was
together. Yeah.
Yeah. That was really, really cute. Which team do you want to go to next and talk about? Anybody want to jump in? Do you want to go to?
Did you talk about the red team?
We haven't. I'm kind of going to say, shall we save him for last? I don't know. Let's talk about Rebecca and Jonathan and the black team and who Rebecca met.
So she met her two of her great uncles.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And one of them used to babysit her when she was little. Her mom would go off to work in the evenings and he'd babysit her and read her stories and put her to bed. And that was really sweet.
It was.
It really was a wonderful moment to hear him say, "We've been looking for you for 20 years.
And we found you.
And we love you. And we have always loved you."
Yes. Mm-hmm. That was just, it was beautiful. It was just wonderful. And for her to be able to hear some stories about that time period in her life that she's not going to remember, although she looked at him and said, "I recognize your face," you know? Mm-hmm. So that was amazing. But, there's got to be that hole in her memories and so for him to be able to fill in those gaps and tell her stories must be just wonderful for her.
Mm-hmm. But they showed in the previews for her that she's meeting somebody special, and it looks like it was the kid in the picture.
Yeah.
So you kind of gotta wonder, like, is this a cousin? Like, who?
Somebody more her age?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be really interesting to see who that will be. So stay tuned and watch next week. See who that is. And I think keep your Kleenexes handy.
Yeah, it'll be just as emotional, because if you can imagine being 4, 5, 6, and having this relative basically ripped from your family, due to those circumstances that.
Yeah. It's got to be so hard, and I'm so thrilled for her to be able to put these pieces together. Absolutely. It's just wonderful. And she said, "I've got so much family now, I don't know what to do with them all." So, and you want to go, but wait, there's more.
Right.
Only day 6.
Yeah, only day 6. So then let's move on to the blue team, Michael and Dylan. Anybody want to?
So that was hard. So he met his sister, well, his half sister.
His half sister, yes.
Through his mother's side.
Mm-hmm. And he needed to just get away. I mean, just walk away. It was so emotional for him to meet his sister on his mother's side.
Exactly. And I can't imagine them doing all this, especially these real emotional ones, having the TV, the cameras on you. That's got to be so rough. I mean, I know they signed up for it, but that's got to be difficult. And I don't blame him.
When you get these relations that are so close that you're not expecting, like sister, brother, uncle, like if you're not going in expecting that, you know.
And you wouldn't want to go in expecting it because, you know, you don't want to be disappointed if they don't find close.
Right. True. That's very true.
Yeah.
But I think like my outlook would be like, even if I came home with like 10 new cousins, it would be a win.
That's more than I had before. Yeah.
Right. But to come home with, I've met my father, I've met my sister.
Yeah. And he saw a picture of his mother for the very first time. Oh, I can't even imagine how emotional that just, and his son was trying so hard not to cry. I mean, it was so emotional for him too. It was.
I just watched his face throughout it because he kept making the, like, I'm looking up, I'm turning my nose, I'm moving my jaw around. I'm so not going to cry on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't do it though. Couldn't do it. They all were crying. And I liked that when they looked at each other and said, we've got the same eyes, the same brow, you know, we look like each other. So that's amazing. So it makes me wonder, are they going to be able to find his mom? I'm wondering if that's one of the next steps. Are they going to be able to find her?
I love that they were excited to be able to say, I have my sister's eyes. I have my brother's eyes. Like, can imagine you can never have anybody say that about until you have children. Like,
exactly.
But now to see those family resemblances coming together.
Yeah. It's incredible. So let's move on to Troy. Troy's was absolutely amazing. So he gets up to the door and he says, you know, whose relative are you? And he says, I'm your uncle. I'm your dad's brother. Ha! That was amazing. So they take him inside and he has saved everything that had belonged to his dad. And he'd saved it. He knew about Troy and he'd saved it for the day that he could find him and be able to share it with him. Just looking at the table, I lost it. My husband was watching. Yes. He lost it. You know, my 15-year-old's watching, kind of trying to be all manly. You know, it was amazing. They had his wallet, his passport.
I love these things. He had it set up so nicely already and waiting. It wasn't like he was in this box. Like he was here.
Yeah, go dig through this box and see what I saved. They had it presented.
It was beautiful.
Right, it was beautiful. But then at the end, the last thing they brought out.
Oh,
yeah.
Anyone want to take it from there?
They brought out his father's urn, and it was Harley. And what did it say?
Riding home, or
riding home. Riding home was engraved on it. Yeah. Right. And he says, "I get to touch my dad again." Oh,
heartbreaking. I think their new model was changing people's lives.
Yes, but you know, I mean, that was very heart-wrenching, but also having the opportunity to go through his father's wallet.
Yes.
He saw his father's life through the wallet and through the things that he kept in that wallet. Yeah. And just to think that his uncle saved everything, his social security card, his driver's license, old pictures, whatever document he carried around, he could give it to the son as if he was saving it for this son. One day he would see his nephew and be able to present him with this information.
I was hoping to see, excuse me, that there was a picture of him and his dad in it. I didn't see that. Just to let him know, like, okay, so maybe he wasn't around, but you were still foremost in his mind.
Right. That would have been nice. And perhaps there was, and it just didn't make it on. I laughed when they all gathered at the end and were telling stories. And Dan had said Troy got to go through his father's wallet. What son doesn't want to go through his father's wallet? And Dylan was going like, yeah, I want to go there. And like, been there, done that. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the emotion of being able to get to know his dad was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And so, you know, I know that he had been talking about he didn't have any closure. He didn't have, you know, a cemetery plot to go to. He didn't know anything. And now, and then it said at the very end, you know, we've told people, make sure you watch till the end, because they do those the vlogs at the end. And he said that they were going to give him, once the race was done, he was going to get everything. So that just gave me chills. What an uncle. Yeah. To save it and just have faith that they would find him, I think is incredible. And I can't even imagine how he felt when the producers from Relative Race got a hold of him, because he'd been waiting for so long to find Troy. And then he gets this phone call or email, however, you know, they got a hold of him to tell him that they had Troy and he was coming to his house. I can't even imagine the joy. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
It was an amazing episode.
It was an absolutely amazing episode. So we get to the end, which I absolutely don't like. And we're thinking, listen, let me tell you that the Twitterverse was saying, hey, there was too much good stuff going on. Can we have a night where nobody gets a strike? And then somebody reminded me that I guess in season 1, they did have a night like that, where they just had a free night and nobody was sent home. So they didn't do that last year that I can remember. But who knows? Maybe they'll do it. Wouldn't that have been nice? If they'd have just said, look, with all this emotion, we can't handle it. Nobody's getting a strike tonight. But they didn't. So, Mary, you want to give us a wrap up of what happened? Can't hear you.
Is that?
There you go.
Yeah,
okay.
Must have hit the button.
When
they were telling at the end, and all of them on their computers and looking and hearing each other's stories. And I'm looking at John, and it was all he could do to hold it together and not start bawling when Troy was telling his story. John, he was really broken up. And, you know, I mean, those people, those 4 teams, I mean, I wonder if they've had a chance to actually meet in person since the series has ended.
I have wondered that too. And I have thought to myself, why didn't we ask that question when we had Dan right in front of us at Roots Tech? I just didn't even think to ask that.
Yeah.
But maybe that's something we could find out and ask.
I don't remember the bonding between the teams before, so it didn't matter whether they met or not, because they didn't know each other. They were strangers.
Yeah, I mean, they did do the 4 together last season, but there just seems to be more of talking through what's been going on, and there's much more. And I think they're connecting, especially the green team isn't looking for a parent. The other 3 teams are. Not to say they're not bonding with the green team. They're so much fun. The rapping in the car cracks me up. And then she's like, and she's trying to find the next word. She cracks me up with her rapping. They're a fun team. I love that they're finding cousins. And the other 3 teams have that connection with trying to find parents. And I think that's really helping them bond. And then the green team is bonding through that emotion of seeing them go through this. And I think that's what we're seeing, is that bond. So I hope that they're going to be able to, if they haven't yet, because the show's not done, I'm hoping that at the end they will be able to get together and talk through it, because they're the only really ones that are going to be able to understand, to help them process everything they went through with somebody else who went through it too. Yeah. So hopefully they'll be able to do that. But Mary, give us a lowdown of who won and who got a strike.
So red team won finally. And they took the day 10 benefit.
Actually, what they took was the $50,000.
So funny.
That was hysterical. What do you want? The day 10 benefit or the mystery prize? Dan, we want the $50,000. I loved it.
Team Black, who had that horrible traffic jam, but because they missed didn't have to do the first challenge, they wound up in third place, which was really, it shows you how much making that decision can really impact.
Can change the game for that day. Absolutely.
And then it was the green team that got another strike.
Yes, that got another strike. Yeah, so we've got the blue team and the green team with 2 strikes. So somebody could go home day 7. Somebody could go home next week. I hope not. It would be great if they could all just get to 2 strikes. I mean, that way everybody can make it as far as possible, because I'm not ready to let any of them go yet. And usually by this point, I'm pro some team,
Right.
And I just can't this season. I love them all. I'm so excited about all the things that they're finding. And I'll miss the musical stylings of the green team if they went home. and they're just so funny. And probably because of them, they made a new rule. They can't go to fire stations anymore. So what did they do? They went to the airport. And she goes, I'll drive slow. So Morgan's driving really slow and Jamie's out asking people.
And red team, Troy said, I got another way around this, but we didn't find out what it was.
No, we didn't find out what it was.
Didn't have to pull it out of his pocket, but
yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking, okay, well, I said no firemen. What about police?
And next week it'll be just can't ask anybody. Oh, and the black team. Well, how funny was that when they ended up going to the couple in the car, the elderly couple, and he says, "I'll take you as long as you're not going to rob me." That was so funny. I promise. There's a TV crew. This is a show. We got cameras all around. I'm not going to rob you. Oh, hysterical. Yeah. Just hysterical. So make sure you watch episode 7, because there is going to be probably more tears, a lot more tears shed. So be prepared with your Kleenex and your
we had been out of town, gone down to Portland to see our daughter yesterday, and so drove back last night and got home after Relative Race had aired. But I said to Mark, I have to do my homework. So I had to sit and watch television so I could do my homework.
Exactly. It's just, you just can't miss a second of it, because there's just so much going on with all of the teams. Well, unfortunately, we need to move on, because now we've got 2 shows on that we're going to talk about. And the next is Long Lost Family. And as we said when we first started, that's on TLC, and it's at 10 o'clock Eastern time. So it's back to back. You wipe those tears and you just turn the channel and you still have tears. So who would like to start talking about the first story of the young lady who was trying to find her sister? Would anybody like to start with that one?
Well, she was given up for adoption, but she stayed with her grandmother. That's what it was. And a little girl was there. She knew she had a sister, but for some reason, her grandmother didn't get the sister. And so she was looking for this sister. And she knew she had one, but didn't know what happened to this sister.
Yeah. And so she just had all these imaginings of what could have happened to her, because if she didn't come with the grandmother and her, then obviously, in her mind, she went to the foster care system, which is actually what happened to her. But, a lot of those kids don't ever get adopted, and they just move from home to home to home. And so she really had fears of what may have happened to her sister. So through DNA, they were able to find her. And she lived
an hour away.
An hour away.
And what's funny about that is that they were both born in the Bronx.
That's right, in New York.
Each other in Florida.
Yeah,
but they were raised so close in the Bronx too. Because they were. I mean, they could named. I went to this school. I went to that school. They were not far from each other.
Yeah, I used to walk down that block all the time.
Right. And these girls were biological sisters. They weren't even half sisters. They were biological sisters, they said. And so I can't even imagine being 7 years old and having a memory of a little sister and not ever knowing what happened to her. And of course, the little sister had no memory. She didn't realize that she had an older sister. And she always felt like, well, maybe nobody really cared about her. Where was her family? Why was she placed in foster care? Why didn't she have anybody looking for her? Was kind of her feelings. And so it was just a wonderful reunion when the two of them. I didn't think that her sister was going to be able to handle it, though, when they told her that they had found her sister. She was starting to hyperventilate. She
was all out.
it was really hard for her. It was really hard for her, but they were able to meet. And I can't, how wonderful that they just live an hour apart, because now, like they said, we can be part of each other's lives. It won't be hard. There won't be flying to the other part of the country. It won't be. And then they brought in the grandmother, and that was emotional. She just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. So I thought that was a really great story, that they were able to put them together. And I don't know anything else about their family, but maybe she'll be able to meet other people and feel more of that connection. And then she can introduce. She had 4 children, so she'd had a good life. So she did go into the foster care system. She did end up being adopted by one of her foster families. So, and then she had a really good life from there. So she wasn't complaining about the life that she had. She just wanted.
She was looking. She had tested. And so if she hadn't tested, they probably,
it would have been harder. It would have been harder. They may have been able to find her, but it would have been a lot harder, I think, because it's really hard to get through those records through the foster care system. Those are harder records to get, because they're closed, and it's just harder to open those up and find names and those type of things. So it would have been definitely harder to try to find her. So I loved that. And they just looked at, oh, you look like me. You have the same eyes, and just hugging each other. It was just beautiful. I really liked that story. So then go ahead.
No, it was a good story.
Yeah. Then we move on to Christian. Who would like to tell us about Christian?
Well, I would like to talk about Christian.
Okay.
So Christian was he was adopted as well. He was looking for his biological family, period. Anybody. He had a really good life. He loved his adoptive parents. He was raised in a white community, and he had community issues because he didn't look like everybody else.
Right.
But his paperwork stated that both of his parents were white. So he wanted to know kind of the background, what really makes him him. And his DNA came back and showed that he was 28% African American. And Lisa had found his mother and talked to his mother, and the mother said that the father was a German man. She didn't understand what Lisa was saying to her. Like, it makes no sense. This German man took a paternity test, and we know it's his father. Well, I was kind of very frustrated watching this all play out, because even if this German father was his father, if there was African American in his past history, that doesn't mean he's not going to look white. We're making judgments based on skin color, and it's completely wrong. And then if you move over, so they're assuming that African American had come from his father's side. But if you go to his mother's side, she's got Italian heritage, and many Italians have African American in their background as well. So it just seemed like that a lot of these things were like, just, I don't know. I don't think that they were handled properly in the storytelling. Like, it was just.
They probably knew it, but as they told the story, those things didn't come out. Right. So it made it look like, oh, it couldn't have been this guy because this guy didn't look African American. Well, we know that people don't have to look a certain ethnic group to be part of an ethnic group.
Exactly.
So,
and if you look at that 28%, that's one grandparent. That's just one grandparent who would have to be basically a full-blooded.
Whatever it would be, yeah.
Yeah, in any heritage. So yeah, I was very frustrated by the story, but very happy that he found his mother. The mother did finally come back and say, I remembered more, and there was this fellow, and he was African American, and my parents would have killed me
if they'd known.
He has since passed, but here is his name, because you deserve to know.
Right. What I loved that Christian said was, he said, just on meeting his biological mother, he says just finding the information, that hole that he'd had was gone. It was no longer there.
And how about that he didn't want to see her picture? I thought, that's weird. Everybody says, yes, I want to see a picture. And he goes, no, I want to lay eyes on her.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too. Yeah. That was amazing.
Story.
It was quite a story. And they also said that he had been adopted by another family, and that family had taken him back, sent him back when he was 10 days old, because they felt he was too dark. And other family members may not appreciate that. So they sent him back. And I thought, oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, what a story to have in your repertoire of stories about your life, that you were sent back.
Yes, and the stories the stories they were telling about what happened at school to him, from
that was sad.
That was so sad. No wonder he really needed to find out. He needed to find out why. Why are people? Why am I different? I need. This is more than me just being adopted. But
even through all the bad he went through, look at all this man has accomplished in his.
Yes,
he was where he was meant to be.
Oh yeah,
his family.
Exactly.
What he said about, the things that I've been able to do, the places I've traveled, I've met presidents, and finding my mother. Even when Lisa told him that she found his mother, before he even met the mother, just that part was the greatest moment of my life. And that, it wasn't meeting presidents. It was hearing that his mother had been found.
Yes. I like the scene, the beginning where he was sitting at the table with his adoptive parents too. And they were fully supporting him, because that was information he needed to know. They didn't have anything, because a lot of times you do, when you adopt a child, you've got at least some background to give them. You've got some medical information, because they're much better nowadays about getting that kind of information. But to have absolutely nothing, no clue, and just to know you're different and nobody knows why, and the paperwork doesn't make sense, no wonder he had a hole.
I thought it was also interesting. I've been working on some adoption cases recently, and that Lisa had talked to mom, and mom had said, I don't know what you're saying, because he was German, and Lisa just let it drop, walked away, and said, I don't want to spook her. And I think, just as a technique for people maybe who are gonna try this on their own, it's really good to have those things in the back of your mind, that you've got to tread very carefully, because if you spook them, that could close the door before it ever really gets a chance to open.
Exactly. And there are a lot of people who don't want to be found. They don't want this information coming up. I mean, there are people that gave up children being told they'll never be able to find you. And so it's very difficult, and they've never told any family that they had a child. And so it becomes very difficult. So it's something you've got to tread very lightly. You just can't go in gung-ho. Hello, guess what? We found your child, and we're bringing him. Look who's standing here at the door.
But I felt that the mother, for the first time, wanted the opportunity to tell her side of the story, why she gave him up. And the fact that her parents just absolutely would not allow her to bring this child home. And so she held him one time, and that was it. And she went on with her life. She had no choice.
Well, I wonder too, in the back of her mind, she also knew who the father was.
Yeah.
And she also knew she was going to have this baby who might look like the father. And that was going to be issues with her family as well. So she had a lot going on when she was making those decisions. So it was tough. It was tough for her. But I loved that he thanked her for doing it. He, you know, I had a good life. So thank you for giving me that life.
It's also interesting that the mom had kept up enough with the dad to know he was 55 years old when he died. Yes. I mean, because lots of times that they make that break and then they have no idea what happened.
Exactly. So it makes you wonder if he was somebody that lived in the community that, you know, that she knew. And so, of course, she knew when he passed away. So that was interesting, too. So, ladies, thank you so much. We got 2 shows that we're going to have to talk about. So make sure everybody out there that you're watching Relative Race on BYU TV at 9 o'clock on Sunday nights, and you're watching Long Lost Families at 10 o'clock, and these are Eastern times, on TLC. And we will continue discussing them, and we would love to hear your comments. We would love to get your feedback about the things you felt when you watched. So good night, ladies. Thank you so much for being here with us, and we'll see you again on Gen Friends. Night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.